It is very common quilting advice to always work with the best fabric you can afford. I'm Michelle. This is my romantic tangle. The quilts that I make to use in my own household or to give away are meant, for the most part, to be utility quilts to be used and loved and worn out, and I'll make more. Very recently, I got a look at the quilts on my oldest son's bed and realized that quilt shop quality fabric is not a guarantee that your quilt is going to last longer than thrift store, discount store, estate sale fabric. I laid out these quilts this morning to do a side-by-side comparison. I made them at about the same time. The squares are about the same size, but the difference in wear and tear is shocking. How does quilt shop quality fabric compare to the cheap stuff? This poor quilt looks like someone took a band sander to it to make a zombie costume. It has been used on a bed a lot for a period of years, but the comparison between this and the other quilt just blows my mind. This is quilt shop quality fabric. I'm not going to name the company because I don't want to throw them under the bus, but this is the best you can afford. This is the cheap fabric from thrift stores and Joann's discounts and estate sales, and who knows where it all came from. It's not all 100% cotton. This poor quilt has also been used and abused and faded, and yes, I did try stripping it in the bathtub. You may have seen that video. But do you notice the fabric is all intact? Do I think there was anything wrong with the nice quilt shop fabric? No, not necessarily. It just wasn't significantly better than the fabrics I used in the green quilt, which that is a combination of thrift store scraps, cheap Joann keepsake cotton, estate sale finds. I think there probably are a couple of quilt shop back quarters that found their way in there, but I was looking for the right shades of green, not giving a second thought to the quality of the fabric. And it's outlasted the other quilt. Like I said, to a shocking degree. I don't know what happened here. I know that these quilts did not have anything deliberately horribly done to them, and they were both used under similar circumstances. I am not precious about my quilts. Do I have regrets? Maybe a little. Maybe I would have kept this quilt a little more carefully. This is the one that was made to withstand all the wear and tear and abuse. And thinking about this as I was scripting this video in my head last night, it reminded me of the really old Yellow Pages commercials to the tune of the Anvil chorus with used, sometimes abused. That is how I intend my quilts to be used in this world. And sometimes it does not work out well. Not all cheap fabric is great fabric. If the more you sew, the more fabric you feel, the more you'll be able to tell whether fabric is something you want to work with or not. When I very first started quilting, Joann still had the keepsake cotton for $2.99 and $3.99 a yard and 40% off sales on top of that. So I have a fair amount of cheap Joann's fabric still in my stash. I've used a ton of it. I have a lot of thrift store scraps, estate sale scraps. If it feels enough like cotton, I'm going to use it. And sometimes if I'm without a doubt sure that it's a polyester blend, if it is a color I like and I'm cutting it into small pieces, I will use that too. I do quilt these utility quilts more densely, which helps them hold up better. This one was done in a much looser meander, and maybe that was part of its downfall. I love some of the quilt shop fabrics, and I buy some now and then, and I treat myself and splurge, but for the most part, I am working with cheap fabrics that other quilters might tell you not to use, and in my experience, my quilts have not suffered for it. I've heard the advice that you should make fewer quilts if you can't afford to make them all out of expensive name brand fabrics, and I'm not going to do that. I will cut fabrics into tinier pieces so that I can get more bang for my buck and more time spent with the fabrics I love. That does not always work great with expensive novelty prints because if you cut them into tiny pieces, you lose some of that fabulous imagery, but it's something to consider. If you quilt, let me know. Are you on team high quality fabric only, or I'll use whatever gets the job done? I would love to hear about it in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I'm Michelle. This is my romantic tangle, and I'll use whatever works in my quilts, even sheets.